Ron, there's a lot of talk that's been happening on our channel and everybody else's about the modern cartridges, and I just feel like we need to go back to your roots, 150, 200 years ago, and talk about some of the older ones. So that's what we're going to be talking about today on Ron Spomer Outdoors, is the classic cartridges for each big game species.
I'm not sure I can remember that far back, but I'll try.
How this is going to work is I am going to give you 8 different animals.
Okay, thank you.
And you're going to tell me which cartridge you would use on that animal. But the caveat has to be a cartridge that was developed and made before 1950.
That's the easy part. I remember all those. Okay, well, what's the first one?
We're going to start with a classic. We're going to go with elk.
Elk are a classic, yes. That's a North American animal. It's in the deer family. This has antlers. That's why it's a deer.
Well, maybe I was pulling your leg a little bit there, but yeah, elk is the classic, and I have answered this question many times, and I go with, even though I rarely actually use it on elk, the .338 Winchester Magnum, I think, is right in the center of a great elk cartridge.
Yeah.
Not too big, not too small, not too slow, not too fast. The bullets aren't too heavy, but they're not too light. It's just right for an elk.
So what year was it made?
1958.
Got to go pre-1950.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
I forgot.
Back to the old man. Pre-1950, 300 H&H Magnum would probably win that
I think
game.
we actually had one of those on the table a minute ago.
Yeah, right here. Right here.
300.
The old slope shoulder.
Yep, the old slope shoulder. It looks kind of like a 30-30
Yeah.
supersized,
No.
basically.
It looks like a 300 H&H. Nothing else looks like that. It looks like a missile from the 1960s, the Mercury program. Yeah, that's your baby.
So 300 H&H. Why?
1950. Well, it's a Magnum, the first Magnum 30 caliber. So you're going to throw easily a 180 to 200 grain bullet. That's more than plenty for elk. You're driving it almost as fast as a new 300 Win mag would, and that didn't come out till 62, so that's why I can't claim that one. That's kind of the first of the Magnums, the 375 H&H Magnum, obviously in 1912. But that's a little overkill for an elk. Not that there's such a thing as overkill when you're putting a bullet into the boiler room kind of a deal, but for carrying it, recoil, and all those reasons, that's why I call that one overkill. This one, of course, is going to be a lot lighter recoil, not much more than a 30-06.
Yep.
But yeah, the classic all-American 30 caliber in the first Magnum, and that super sloped design and all, the taper on that case, it's famous for being swift and clean cycling.
Oh, that makes sense.
You push this thing up out of the magazine, and it just slides in there like butter. So, hot butter, too.
Beautiful. Okay, let's go on to another classic Western animal, which is the mule deer.
Mule deer. That is slam dunk, 270 Winchester.
Which was in the 30s.
1935 is when the rifle came out, the Model 70.
Yep.
But the actual 270 cartridge came out, most people would say 1925, because that's what's repeated, but it actually was out sooner than that. I didn't know this.
Wildcat, wasn't it?
No. Winchester cranked it out and called it the 27 caliber, put it on a few rifles they were building in their custom shop. The Model 51 preceded the Model 54. I didn't know about that until I did some research for our 270 week videos, and I was shocked to find out that they had a 27 caliber, they called it. They didn't call it the 270 Winchester that first year it was out, and you had to order a special rifle, and I think they only made about 15 or 20 of these rifles.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that was back in the day before you had to come up with a cool name like the 7 Backcountry.
Yeah.
It was just like, it's the 27 caliber.
Yeah. They took a 30-06, they necked it down. It was the 27. That's all they had to pick from.
Okay, so 270. I mean, what bullet would you choose out of that?
I'm going to stick with the 130. I'm tempted to go with the 140 and probably would with the right 140 grain bullet. I've always thought with the 270, it made its reputation on 130 grain bullets, but a lot of people think, oh, you need a little more oomph than that, so they went with the 150.
Yep.
But then they went, oh, now it's too slow. So the good compromise is the 140. But these days with our advanced bullets, especially the Barnes and the hammers and all of the copper bullets that expand so reliably, and you can shoot a lighter weight one. So 130 grain all copper hollow point bullet is the equivalent, I think, in performance of a traditional 150 grain. It's going to penetrate probably even more than that one because it's not going to break up. And I have taken lots of game with that, including elk. So 130 grain bullet with the copper on it on a 270 going for mule deer, I mean, piece of cake.
Out to 400 yards. It's nothing.
Easily 400 yarder, yeah. And if you really want to push it, you can easily get it to 500 with the right rifle scope accuracy and all the rest of it in the right conditions. But mule deer country, quite often you're facing some pretty stiff winds, so you want to sneak closer. And there are not many mule deer that you can't get within reasonable range of. Look at all the bow hunters you're taking.
Is about as far as I'd want to go personally. But.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Whitetail deer.
Whitetail deer, you could still go with that 270. Except for there's so many people in the eastern states that can't shoot past maybe 100 yards. What do they need a 270 for?
You don't need a lightning bolt at 100 yards?
No, it's still not a bad choice. But if we've got to go pre-1950, that leaves out the 24s. The 25-06 is not qualified because it was a wildcat back then, but it wasn't commercial until 69.
Well, I'm okay. Oh, like it wasn't commercialized. Okay, so we do have to leave that one out.
Yeah. Now, back in those days...
Or at the very least, we have to reload for it.
Yeah. The 250 Savage was a good one. The 257 Roberts then was a little faster than that, and those were real popular whitetail rounds for back east. But... God, the old 30-30. If you're talking, but I really can't go with the 30-30 guys because great as it is in the woods back east, you get into the plain states, South Dakota, and then clear over here into the west. We have whitetail in Washington State, and there are a few whitetail down even in Oregon, and they're well up into the North Woods. I've seen them pretty far up into British Columbia.
I've seen them within 100 miles of where we live.
Yeah. So, it's crazy how you can find whitetail in what most people would think would be mule deer country. So that suggests we do want to kind of a compromise between the 30-30 for the closer range eastern stuff and something out where there's a little more reach, and I would go 708, but that didn't come out until 1980.
You could go with the 757 Mauser.
That's where I was going, my friend.
I didn't actually think you would go there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. 757 Mauser is an outstanding round for whitetail, whether it's close or far. Yeah, just a great cartridge. Got bullets from 140 grains to 175. I'd go with 140, maybe 150.
And the nice thing about the 7x57 Mauser, my grandpa shot a bison with it, by the way.
Really?
He shot it 4 times, but he did shoot it. It's very similar to 7mm08, a little bit slower usually, but
because of the factory loads.
Yeah.
If you hand load, you can get it going a little faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got a little more powder capacity, but either one of them.
I love a good 7mm08. So 7x57 Mauser.
Yep.
It's a great choice, Ron. Let's move on to the next one real quick, which is going to be moose. I'm thinking you're going to go with a 220 Swift.
How's that? Next.
Are you really going to go with a 220 Swift?
No, I'd love to go there. But no, to be practical, pragmatic, however you want to state it, you got to go with the 30-06.
Yeah.
Even though in 1948, the partition bullet came out from Nosler because John had found out that the 300H Magnum he was using to shoot moose, the bullets were exploding on the mud-caked hide. Now, that was a bullet issue more than the cartridge. But if you step the velocity back down to 30-06, I probably wouldn't have had that issue.
Yeah.
But people are always looking for a bigger cartridge for a big animal like a moose. Turns out moose are not all that hard to put down. It just takes them a while to realize they're dead. You park one through the shoulder, behind the shoulder, you get it into that heart-lung region, and the moose looks around and goes, boy, the flies are bad this year.
And then he falls over 5 minutes later.
Yeah, not quite 5 minutes, but it takes him a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a good bullet from that 30-06, you're going to have him.
Next one, pronghorn antelope.
Oh, see, that's a toughie. The best pronghorn cartridges from the old days were after 1950. That's when we got the 243 and the 6mm Remington and the 25-06. That's my favorite. But the 257 Weatherby was out. 1944, 45. It wasn't real common. It was proprietary, but it was there. I'm claiming it. 257. Oh my gosh, that thing drives bullets so fast. 100 grain bullet at 30,300 feet per second or something like that. But if you want to go with 117 grain, I'd say 120. That's kind of always the top of the heap for those because of their twist rates. They can't take one much heavier than that or much longer than that. The appropriate answer. And you don't need it for a pronghorn. Now, with today's bullets, the higher BC bullets, they've even got some 130, 131 grain bullets, much higher BC, and you can really beat the winds. And that's a concern in pronghorn country. Yeah, they're long range. You want to minimize your drops and everything. But since we're not handicapping ourselves with a 1950s binocular, we can use a range-finding binocular, and then we know our trajectory. So we really don't need the flat trajectory so much as the wind deflection business, and that means a longer bullet. So these days, for most 257 Weatherby's that were twisted to the standards, I think it's a 1 in 10, you're going to probably be limited to a 120 grain bullet, and then you want to step down to 117 or 115 grain, because those are the ones that have the highest BC that will still stabilize. But then with those kinds of velocities, you're looking at a dead-on hold probably out to 340 yards.
Oh, that's a
Doable.
long ways.
Doable, yeah.
Doable. That's doable. Yeah. Okay, Ron, next one. The American bison.
Oh, the 4570. I definitely slipped in under the 1950 regulation right there. 4570. You know, the 375 H&A should be a really good option. That was around, 1912. So that one was around, available. Not real common, but it was chambered. Model 70 had it. I think, I don't know when Remington started chambering for that. They eventually did with the 700, but that didn't come out until 62. So you would have been looking at the 722, 721. Those, I don't think they had it.
Okay, now, black bear.
Anything you shoot with whitetail going to work for a black bear.
Yeah.
277. Oh, can't use the 708. Back to the 757 Mauser. That would be a good one. But a lot of guys think, oh, big bear, it's going to be really tough and everything. They want a larger caliber, something in the 35s. Go with the 35 Whalen.
Ooh, and that'd punch a big hole, so you got a good blood show. The one thing that bears are known for is not bleeding well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not that big of a hole. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, big hole. Come on, 35 from 30 up to 35, not that big of a hole. The bullet's construction is going to make a bigger difference on what size hole you put through him.
Yeah.
But I would like a bullet that's going to, start it off at 35, but keep it heavy so that it punches through and opens up a leak on the other side.
That's really the benefit of getting a good pass through, is it just tends to bleed better.
Yeah, blood trail's nice.
2 holes instead of 1.
Yeah, and black bears are usually in some pretty heavy cover, and they don't leave sharp hoof tracks and things. They're a little difficult to track. Blood trails are pretty handy.
Yep. Okay, grizzly bear.
Ooh, grizzly bear. Boy, the 300 Magnums were the big deal for them back in the day.
Yeah.
Prior to 1950, we're getting back again to that 300 H&H, but we had the 375 H&H as well, and I think we're going to have to go there. You could, again, go to that 35 Whalen.
Do that one.
The 416 Rigby, but where are you going to find one of those? Of course, you're talking about today. You're not using rifles from those days, right?
We're saying your favorite cartridge to use today that has to be old school, though.
Yeah. For old school on that one, you're probably right. 416 Rigby. Harder to find the rifles and stuff. I don't know how many people were using those back in the day. But, you can certainly get it and use it today.
I think they were mostly just shooting grizzly bears with 30-06s from what it sounds like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, most people had 30-06s. And it's like, we're going bear hunting.
Like the old Mosin Nagants.
Yeah, I wouldn't grab one of those, and that's a 7mm by, what's the cartridge, the original, 50 something?
Yeah.
I don't even remember it. I'm not real crazy about Russian rifles and cartridges, but
well, I've shot a few of them, but it was mostly with military surplus stuff. You'd pull the trigger, about 3 seconds later the gun would go off. We're gonna jump into 2 more animals. We're gonna go mice.
Mice. Boy, the largest cartridge I've used to shoot a mouse was the 375 Weatherby Magnum. And that was because the mouse was in our tent, chewed a hole through it, and was eating all the ramen and all of our food. We come back from overnight somewhere to our main tent, and there's everything demolished from this mouse. And while we were cleaning up, the mouse appeared, and the guide said, "There's that mouse, get him." So I grabbed the handiest tool, and it was a 375 Weatherby Magnum. Worked.
I bet it did.
Used enough gun.
Okay, now we'll go straight to elephants from there.
Well, there I'm going to have to go with the 22 rimfire. It's just the opposite of the mouse. Oh, boy, back in the day with elephants, they started off with huge bullets and 4-borers and 2-borers because they were essentially shotguns. If you rifled them, you're still essentially shooting a shotgun. And if you have a 2-bore, that means each slug you're shooting weighs half of a pound. Because you take 1 pound of lead and you melt it into spheres that will fit down the bore of your gun, and those numbers of spheres are the gauge of the gun. So a 20 gauge would have 20 balls coming out of a 1 pound chunk of lead. So a 2-bore would mean you'd 2 into 1 pound, you cut a pound in half, you got an 8-ounce ball. Youch, that puts a big hole. But they're not exactly driving them at high velocity. So the old guys way back when they were doing that, were taking a lot of recoil to put bullets or round balls into elephant shoulders and whatnot that just didn't get very far.
Yeah.
So they'd have to shoot them again and again and
They
again.
were relying completely on the mass.
Yeah, they needed some penetration, so they needed not just the mass, but also a better shape of a bullet, maybe a little bit harder one than pure lead, and then driving it through with enough power behind it. And boy, that really didn't happen well until smokeless powder came along. Then things
After
really
the smokeless powder came out, a lot of people were using the 7x57 Mauser to shoot elephants.
Not a lot, but a famous one. That was Bell. Karamojo Bell, a commercial market hunter. Now, you got to remember, this was back in the early 1900s, guys, so don't go chewing him out because, oh, how dare you kill the elephants. we did. Human race is famous for destroying habitats, destroying wildlife, making the world safe for humanity. That's just what we did. So... But back then, there were many elephants, and he was a commercial ivory hunter and very successful at it, but he used a 757 Mauser to take 800 elephants. He used a 6.5 Mannlicher to take 300 elephants. And then he used a spattering of other things he played around with. But the point is, by using the right bullet and putting it in the right place, this is kind of the crux of that very saying, that phrase, because he proved it with a little 173 grain military bullet from a 757 Mauser. It was really the 275 Rigby name of his rifle, but it's the same cartridge as a 757.
So which one would you choose?
Well, I probably wouldn't be allowed to use the 757 today in Africa. You have to have a minimum of the 375 H&H. And I hate to say that's the one I would choose, but it really is.
Yeah.
And it's because I've used it on my one and only elephant hunt, and it worked just fine.
Wow.
And it was a shoulder shot, a heart shot. The PH told me, don't go for the brain shot. And everybody wants to do the hero shot and go for the brain like Bell did. That's why he was so successful. He knew what angle, where, depending on how close you are to the animal, you're going to shoot up. Is he tipping his head down to look at you, or is he looking straight ahead? What's the side shot? All these things. It's challenging because the ball of brain inside there is about the size of a volleyball. So you've got to figure out how that bullet is going to get there. And if you don't get to the brain, you don't get them. I watched a guy with a .458 Winchester Magnum try to head shoot an elephant to brain him, and the elephant just walked off. He did nothing to it. So the PH had to shoot him in the heart, and then, like any other animal, ran a little ways and bled out and was gone. So this guy said, don't go for that headshot because then he might get away, and you don't want that. It's much safer to go for that shoulder shot. The shocking thing to me was that when I hit that shoulder, that elephant started tipping over immediately. I only had a split second for that to sink in because right behind me was the PH shooting again. I got my shot in. The elephant started tipping. He shot. His bullet landed 5 inches from mine, both on the shoulder, and that elephant was down and in the ground. I thought he had brain shot him. It fell so quickly.
Wow.
Exactly why that happened, in my experience with heart and lung shot animals, they just don't automatically fall dead like that. Sometimes they do, and maybe that's what happened this time. Maybe we just hit that magic nerve bundle or whatever it is inside there. But I was pretty impressed with what that 375 H&H did on that elephant. And I was only using a 270 grain all copper bullet, a hammer bullet.
Wow.
But a PH over there told me that he'd had, I don't remember how many, I think it was getting close to 24 elephant kills with that 270 grain bullet. And that reassured me that it could do the job. I'd seen it work on buffalo, so why not? And by golly, it did.
Ron, I think that this has been fun. We're going to have to do this again for maybe we'll do like 1950s to 2000s cartridges next time.
And could we do fox squirrels, cottontails, whitetail jackrabbits?
We're going to add in all kinds of different rodents and everything else. But, I would just say that we're going to be hunting pretty quick here. And something that's going to be fun is you're actually going to be guiding for me.
Do I get to use the 375 H&H?
On a mouse, yes. Ron's going to be guiding me for 2 weeks. this year, which is going to be so fun.
I'm tired already.
The guys that are going to be coming into camp are going to be, I think they're going to be slack-jawed once they see who
They're going to turn around and go home and demand their money back. That's what they're going to do.
But either way, whether you're using new cartridges, old cartridges, in the middle cartridges, middle-aged cartridges, make sure that we're going to be hunting honest and shooting straight with them.
That's right. Hunt honest and shoot straight. And do it while you can. When you get this old, all bets are off.
And was eating all the ramen and all of our food. You know, we come back from a